You're someone with a vision for your practice, for your side hustle, and for your personal journey. But when it comes to establishing your path on how to get to where you want to be with your practice, things get a little messy. You're also someone who'd prefer to go in person instead of to groups and listening to everyone else's story. To me, it sounds like you could benefit from one-on-one consulting with our experienced practice of the practice consultants. From $5.95 a month and up, you can work with a consultant that will give you more direction and practical tried and tested tips matched to you and your goals. For more information, visit practiceofthepractice.com/apply. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/apply. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 1105. Welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast. We are going to be doing a series between now and the beginning of November, where we are going to be playing all of our Level Up Week trainings that we did in September of 2024. We're going to be talking about from empty to overflowing, talking about your branding, talking about multi-locations, shifting from 1099 to W-2, all sorts of different things during this series. And if you want help from one of our consultants for every single phase of practice, or if you're just not sure where you fit in our memberships versus our consulting, I would love for you to talk with me over at practiceofthepractice.com/apply. We can schedule a 30-minute call together and dig into all those different areas that you want to get started. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/apply. Now let's get started with the Level Up Week series. So excited that you are here with us today. Hope you're doing awesome today. We kicked off this morning with a panel with group practice bosses, and boy, oh boy, was that awesome. So many great tips. People that just launched their group practice like a year ago, that already have 4 clinicians, other people that launched a couple years ago. One lady, Emily Runyon, she started her practice just a handful of years ago and now already has a killer group practice. So really inspiring things. Welcome to a bunch of these familiar names that I see from our membership communities. Let me share my screen, and then we're going to dig in since you're here on time. Well, we are talking about scaling, success, and mastering multi-location practice operations today. So we're going to be digging in with Nicole Ball. I'll tell you about Nicole in just a second. If I've never met you, I'm Joe Sanok, and I started Practice of the Practice back in 2012. We passed our 1000th episode of the podcast in June, and I think in October we hit 1100 because we're doing this like 5 or 6 days a week now. We have lots of sponsors, we have lots of guests, so some really incredible things going on with the podcast. Also, I'm a dad of 2 awesome daughters. They're 10 and 13. This weekend, we went to the beach and enjoyed Lake Michigan and then went out for tacos at the Roadhouse, which I've never been there, but it was my first time there. I'm not sure if Nicole's been there since she also lives in northern Michigan. But had their skinny margarita, delicious and dangerous. So Nicole is the owner of Mental Wellness Counseling, a Northern Michigan counseling practice. She actually bought it from me in 2019 and has just done so much since she bought it. Her practice has 3 locations now through Northern Michigan. She's a licensed clinical master social worker in the state of Michigan, member of NASW, and on the board of directors at the National Alliance for Mental Illness in Traverse City. She's also a full-time professor at Ferris State University, which is one thing I really love about Nicole is she runs this mega group practice and is still a professor. So when people are like, should I consult with her? And I'm like, well, do you want to run your practice like in hardly any time at all without losing your mind? Like, yes, that's why you should work with Nicole. She also mentors MSW graduates, level students for their capstone research. And apparently she has like 36 hours in a day when the rest of us get 24. So, Nicole, welcome to this webinar all about operations and multi-site locations.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to share.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited as well. Just yesterday, if any of you missed it, you'll want to watch the recording. We had Isaac Smith, who has 3 locations in California, very distinct. One kind of in a smaller city, one a little bit more rural, and then one in San Diego. And so he talked through just when did he decide to add locations versus kind of keep it all as a central hub. So we're going to talk through some of that with Nicole today, but specifically through that lens of operations. As you have questions, feel free to drop those right in the chat if you have a question for Nicole. Also, if you want to kind of ask the question live, just virtually raise your hand, and then we'll bring you up and put the spotlight on you so we can all see you. The way you do that is at the bottom, you'll see react. And if you click on that, you can give a heart or clapping or thumbs up if you want to react to something Nicole says that makes you feel something. Or you can just click raise your hand, and then that raises your hand, and that lets me know that you want to come on video and ask your question directly to Nicole, which sometimes is easier because then you can actually dig in a little bit more and there can be follow-up questions. So, Nicole, how you doing today?
I'm good. Like I said, I'm really excited to be here and I'm excited to share with people in the community, people who are potentially thinking about entering into the community because there's a lot to learn and a lot to share. And I love it. It's my favorite thing to do is to mentor other folks to share what has worked for me and how it could
Yeah.
potentially work for them.
Yeah, so let's talk about when you bought mental wellness counseling. So I'll talk about where it was at when I sold it to you. So I was a very hands-off owner in a lot of ways. I kind of had this idea of people show up, they do counseling, they get paid, they go home. And operationally, we pretty much just had our intake coordinator. We didn't take insurance. It was very lean because I was a busy person. So where did you, after you bought it, how did you assess what was good, what was bad? My ego's not going to be hurt at all. So, what did you discover as you dug in that operationally, like, okay, here's where we're at, here's where we want to go. Like, take us through that.
Well, I think when I initially bought it, like I saw the potential. Obviously, there was the potential, there was the reputation in the community. And when I saw that, my vision for what it could be is really what drove me to make the decisions I made and take the risks that I made. I knew that I wanted a certain kind of lifestyle. I knew I wanted to make a certain amount of money. And I knew that in order to do those things, I was going to have to take something and turn it into something much bigger. And so I think that's for me is where the vision from what I purchased from you turned into what it is today, because the potential was there. It just needed a little bit of TLC and a little bit of
Yeah.
love and a little bit of time and having to make some big decisions and take some big risks to get it to where it is, $1 million practice today meant that I had to make some big moves immediately after the purchase.
What were some of those initial moves that maybe at the time felt really risky?
Well, I've talked about this on lots of podcast interviews with you and other people. I talk a lot about taking risk because we're never going to get where we want to go if we don't take the risk. And I think the immediate risk that I took was I leased an 7 or 8 office building before I had clinicians to fill it, before I had clients, before I had anything, because the vision was to have, 8 offices with everybody full and, people in and out in the big lobby and the big parking lot. So the biggest risk I took was, I think the day before the signing of the company from you to me, I signed a 5-year lease for this great big building on the water that at the time I couldn't really afford. At the time, I didn't have clinicians to fill, and at the time was unfurnished and big and scary. But that was the big risk was I knew the vision. I wanted it to be big and I knew that I could get those filled. And so that was the number one biggest risk was just
Mhm.
getting the building.
Now, when things started clicking along at that location, when did you add the 14th Street location?
So I added the second location in our city here in northern Michigan. I added that in 2022.
Okay, so like
So
3 years or so, 2.5 years after you
So, yep,
purchased
it was about 2.5 years where I noticed, wow, we are busting at the seams. We have people on top of each other. I want to bring on more people. The phone was ringing. I wanted to bring on more, but I just didn't have the space. So I spent a good, 6 months shortly after COVID, trying to figure out where can I find a bigger building? How do I get out of this lease? Where can I find a bigger building? And those just weren't an option in our area.
it.
So opening up the second location was out of necessity, but it was also out
So
of,
initially you were hoping for just a larger space you can move
yeah,
into.
I was looking for 20 plus offices, is what I wanted. 20 plus offices, a lobby, break room, huge parking lot. And that just wasn't available at the time.
Yeah.
So,
Unless you
oh,
buy the old Kmart. I mean, it's like section it
right?
off into cubicles or something. Yeah.
Right, right. But opening up the second location was also a risk because, yeah, I had clinicians on top of each other at one location, but there was still a bunch of empty offices at this new location. So that was another risk is, wow, I'm going to take on another lease, another set of utilities. I'm going to take on, marketing this second location. And it worked out really well because one's on the east side of town and one's on the west side of town. So I can kind of market it as our east side location, west side location, which worked out really well. But yeah, that was also a really big risk that I took was opening up that second location.
Yeah. How many new offices were in that new location?
7.
Seven. Okay. So, what do you think was harder to do by having seven offices there compared to if you had found a 20 office suite? Like, what do you think is more challenging about that first office that you open up or that second office that you open up?
Well, I mean, obviously managing 2 leases, 2 sets of utilities, 2 business profiles on Google, right? Because you want it for your best SEO, you want to get the 2 separate business profiles that link it to your one website. And then I think just the management of it, if I'm ordering water bottles, I'm ordering for 2 locations and who's going to get which office. And for our intake coordinator, which clinician is at which location and how do we make sure the client's going to the right spot. So some of those logistical things are really difficult. Obviously, we've worked out the kinks since then and it was fine, but
Yeah.
the initial difficulty was that.
Now, when you think about like, were there people that moved from the first location to the new one, or was it filled with totally new people, or like what happened there?
So what I did is I gave everybody at our initial location, I gave them first dibs. So
Mhm.
everybody came over, they checked out the new location, they got to see what the vibe was like, they got to kind of get an idea. And then I had 3 clinicians want to move over because they liked the location better, it was closer to their home, or they just like the space, different, or they, maybe we're going to get something bigger. So I gave them first dibs. And then as I brought on new clinicians, they got the choice. Would you want this location or this location? And then as those filled up, I kind of just told people, hey, I've got one office at this one location, or you're going to have to share an office, or, because I mean, we're already busting at the seams where we're at now.
Mhm. So then you add the third office. When did you add that, and how did you decide where that was going to be?
So I added my third location about a year and a half ago. So that was early of 2023. And that's in a town called Manistee, Michigan. So that is a really beautiful lakeside town over about an hour and a half away from where we're at now. And the reason that I did that is because we were getting a lot of folks reaching out to us from that area and seeking our virtual services.
Hmm.
And what we started doing is we started identifying that those clients who were seeking out our virtual services were, because I think at the time I had 6 therapists that were strictly virtual. They were all over the state. They didn't have a home base. And we found out a lot of them were from that area and from that county. And so, yeah, it just felt really natural. I had some previous connections out there with the community mental health folks, with the court system. And so I reached out and said, hey, what's the need here? Then what I did is once I kind of established that, yes, this is what the need is, I put one of my interns on it. And so and I talk a lot about interns too, about how we
Yeah.
can utilize them. But I put one of my interns on the task of really evaluating the community, what the community's needs are, what insurances most people have, who are the biggest employers, what is the outlook like, what does the competition look like. And once we evaluated all that, I decided that, yep, this is where we need to go. And yep, we opened about a year and a half ago, and with 5 offices, and we're already busting at the seams there as well.
Now, when you think about, so you said we noticed that a lot of the teletherapy were coming from that area. Like, just you have to be doing tracking to even know that information. What kind of tracking was your intake coordinator doing to be able to say, "Hey, Nicole, there's an opportunity here," or what questions were you asking to them to make sure that you had that good data to look at third locations?
Yeah, so our intake coordinator does collect some minimal data. We don't have her doing a whole lot like we used to because, from a marketing perspective, we're just at the point where we don't need to anymore. But early on, she was really keeping track of, where our clients are calling from, how they hear about us, because that's really important from a marketing perspective. But then also, if they're virtual, what is their location? Because she still tracks that, I know where my next location in 2 months is going to be opening.
Mm.
So we have location number 4 opening up in a couple of months. And because of that tracking, we were really able to determine that a lot of people were either driving all the way to Traverse City or all the way to Manistee for that, or they were taking advantage of our virtual services. And so, yeah, so
Mm.
she's keeping track of that for us.
Oh, so awesome. Well, let's talk specifically operations. Like,
Sure.
so from a billing perspective, let's just start there, and then we'll get into like marketing and a few other kind of major things. When you think about the operations of billing, what does that look like at a multi-site location, different from if it was just a single location?
So I think the biggest thing is when it comes down to insurance, right? You have to have your each site affiliated with the insurance. Each location has to be accepted, approved, and listed with the insurance companies. And so every time we add a new location, we have to make sure number one that we get that added with insurance companies right away, so that, for example, Blue Cross Blue Shield knows that client A was seen at this location and client B was seen at this location for billing purposes. So I think that's the biggest thing, is making sure that within our EHR system, that location is identified, making sure with our insurance companies that that location is identified, and then making sure that on our website
Hmm.
and our Google profiles that the identification is, it's all there. And so I think that operations perspective, that's the biggest thing, is when you open up that second site, it's not just like, okay, doors are open, let's get some furniture. It's a lot of making sure that all of the pieces are in place to ensure that you're going to get that reimbursement. Because in order to, for example, reimburse with throughout insurance, that location has to be approved and accepted. And then also, in order for us to bill insurance, or excuse me, bill credit cards through our EHR system, we need to know where the client was. So yeah, for billing, we definitely need to make sure that those things are in place. And it's different for every state. Thankfully for us, once you are established in one county in Michigan, you can go to multiple counties. I have heard, and I don't know how true this is, Joe, you might have to call me out on this, but in some states, you have to have your insurance covered under each county. So thankfully for here, I didn't have to worry about that.
Yeah, yeah. Now, do you guys use a biller outside of mental wellness, or do you have someone internally that does your billing?
So I have somebody internal. So I have a biller who works approximately 15 hours ish per week. She does all of our insurance billing for us. She deals with the insurance company. She charges the credit card. She gets the angry clients on the phone saying, wait a minute, what was my deductible? And the most important thing that she does is, I shouldn't say it's the most important, but one amazing thing is she does is when we get a large payment, let's say we get $20,000 in our bank account from Blue Cross for the week. She's going to take that $20,000 and she's going to identify which clinician, which client that is paid for, and then which percentage I'm paying that clinician for. She takes
Mm.
care of all of that for me. So all I do is I get a notice, every Wednesday morning that says, all right, Nicole, this is how much you put in everybody's bank account. And then that's taken care of. And
Mm.
from an operations perspective, I could not be as successful if she wasn't doing that for me. Because when we have, $40,000 a week coming in from everybody, that's a lot of money. And I have to very quickly figure out what clients those are associated with and what clinicians, because I want my clinicians to get paid right away.
Yeah.
If they saw a client last week, insurance payment comes in, I want them to have that money in their bank account as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because as an owner, I want to support them in their practice and
Yeah.
support them in their livelihood. So for me, that biller position is just a really, really important position.
Well, yeah, and if for some reason, the insurance isn't paying, you want to have that clinician be able to say, "Hey, your insurance card, they say you don't have Blue Cross or whatever." Like you want to be able to catch that before you get 15 sessions in or something too.
And the great thing about having an in-house biller is that she can make that phone call. So my clinicians don't have to talk to their clients about
Yeah.
money. They don't have to talk to their clients about their credit card getting denied. They do the session, they take care of the mental health needs, they do their treatment plans, their assessments, they do their thing, and then that's their relationship. And then my biller can be that person that is the go-to person for clients when insurance issues, when their credit card gets denied, when they're not sure what their deductible is. She can be that go-to person, and it really frees up the client to focus on, the rapport that they're building with the client for the purpose of mental health and mental wellness.
Yeah, so awesome. You know, you may not know this number off the top of your head, but do you have a guess as to like if you were to say how much that biller costs as a percent, like a percent of your gross revenue? I mean, I know that typical just billers not doing the bookkeeping and the payroll and what you're talking about are usually 6% or so. And I just think it's important for people, if they can, to think through like, oh wow, Nicole's only paying 3% of gross revenue towards this person, or 2%, like to just be able to say, well, it's at a certain point, it usually makes sense to bring it in-house.
Yeah, I do not know that percentage off the top of my head, but I would say, oh, I mean, it's got to be 3%.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't see it being up to five at all by any
yeah.
means. So it's definitely three, I would say. But that also depends on how much we grow, right? The more we grow, the more locations we bring on, the more that she's going to have to, that she's going to have to take on. So, but I will say doing it in-house works really well for us because I think as a large practice, it's important for clients to have that personal touch, right?
Mhm.
I want them to know, hey, I can call Rebecca at Mental Wellness and get my questions answered, rather than, having to send an email to a random stranger. I really think the personal touch is important because, some of the risk of having a multi-location practice is people don't really sure where they fit in to this big thing that you have. And so for them to know, like, hey, they can call me and get their questions answered. They can call the biller and get their questions answered. It puts that personal touch on it. So they don't just feel like another number going through our system, that they are important. And I think that's what keeps people coming.
Well, I think it raises also the professional bar of how mental wellness looks, because you think about if you go to your primary care doctor, there's a billing issue. You never call your doctor to be like, "Hey, can you help me sort this out?" Like you talk to the biller. Like you would never be like, "Why is Dr. Adams not calling me back?" Like I have a billing question, like I think it raises that professional standard of kind of what's normal in the typical medical model anyway. I want to share with you something that Brandon put in here. Thanks, Brandon. Good to see that you're here. He said, Nicole, your bio is inspiring. As a full-time professor myself, I had some concern around being able to run a group practice and stay connected to teaching. So, yeah, Brandon, glad you're still going towards that. That's amazing. It's never too early to start thinking about tax season. That's why I've partnered with my friends over at Herd. Herd serves as the financial back office built specifically for therapists in private practice. They're an all-in-one financial solution that combines software with human support to handle bookkeeping, taxes, payroll, and more. Regardless of whether you're a seasoned clinician or in your first year of your practice, Herd will identify growth areas and streamline best financial practices for your business. When you sign up with Herd, you'll connect your bank accounts so your transactions will be automatically pulled in and categorized. My favorite thing about Herd is their allocation guide, which helps you decide how much to pay yourself each month and how much to set aside for taxes. You'll also receive financial insights such as profit and loss statements and monthly reports. You can say goodbye to poring over spreadsheets and guessing your tax deductions or quarterly payments. Focus on your clients, and Herd will take care of the rest. Sign up for a free consultation today at joinherd.com/Joe and get 1 month free with promo code Joe. Again, that's joinherd.com/Joe. I want to ask about marketing. So you mentioned new site added to the website. You mentioned that, a few minutes ago. Um, let's start with SEO. So when you have a new site, you might be ranking for Traverse City, for East Side, West Side, and then all of a sudden you're in Manistee. Like, what do you or the IT team, I'm assuming it's not you, given how smart you are about outsourcing, or maybe it
Right.
is, maybe, but like, what kind of things does the team do to help you start to rank in a new area? So you're in Manistee, that's an hour and a half away. We rank in Traverse City because of the SEO work, but like what goes into that to rank in a new community so that within a year and a half you're bursting at the seams again?
Yeah, I know that we joke, it's all about clicks. It's all about clicks, but it is really all about clicks, right? It's about getting people to click on your website. And what's going to make them click is the keywords that are associated with that location. So if I write a blog about our new Manistee location, or if I have a separate page for our Manistee location, or if I make an announcement on the website about our Manistee location, I'm going to share the link to that specific piece over and over and over again so that we can be sure that we're getting those clicks. And every time we click, we rank a little bit higher on Google. We joke all the time that clicks matter, but they really, really do. Also, backlinks matter. So, for example, if I want to share that we have a new location, a new Manistee location, I'm going to make sure that in the Manistee newspaper, they have my link on there so that everybody who reads the Manistee newspaper clicks on my link. And then I get what's called a backlink directly to my website, which is going to raise us higher on Google as well. We're going to share on our Facebook page this new location. And something else that really seems to work, it might be kind of, I know, elementary, if you will, but I feel like I tell my clinicians, hey, go to Google, type in counseling in this location. Don't click on anything else. Find us and click on it and play on the website for a minute and then close your browser because clicks matter. And so I think that's the big thing is for our SEO, we just really focus when we bring on a new location, really focusing on boosting that up in order to make sure that we're getting as many clicks to that, still to our same website, but as many clicks as possible, therefore raising our Google profile up for that location.
Now, like when you're, say, the Manistee Daily Sun does a story about you and also links online, are you asking them to go directly to mentalwellnesscounseling.com or mentalwellnesscounseling.com/Manistee or something like that? Like, is it the page you want or is it the main homepage?
It's the main homepage.
Okay,
I want clicks on that main homepage. Yep.
cool. Awesome. Well, when it comes to marketing multi-locations, what else are you thinking through when it comes to marketing?
So I something I talk about a lot, both within practice of the practice and with the folks that I mentor, is I'm really big on relationship building. I don't want to just go to some networking event and pass out my cards and shake hands with people I'm never going to see ever again. And believe me, sometimes that works for folks. And if you have to do what's going to work for you in your geographic location with, where you're located. But for me, I would say a lot of my success is based on relationships. I'm going to call the director of the sleep study location here in our local town, and I'm going to ask them about what they do and how we can support them and what their doctors are like. And I'm going to invite them for coffee and I'm going to talk to them about what we do. And then before you know it, we're getting all the referrals from the sleep study place here in town. So whether we're talking about the school social workers, we're talking about sleep study, we're talking about, I mean, chiropractors, anybody, it's about relationship building because that's who you're going to get the referrals from. I want somebody to say, oh yeah, there's some practice over on that side of town. I want them to say, oh, this lady, her name's Nicole, I met her, she's the owner of this practice, here I have a stack of cards, why don't you take one? I want that personal touch to be on there with relationship building. So that's something that I have felt to be really helpful in all of my locations. And I'll give you an example about multi-site. When I first opened up my site in Manistee, one of the first things I did is I talked to the people I know and I said, who do I need to know? Who do I need to call and invite for coffee and get to know? And not make it about myself, not make it about, oh, here's what I have. Make it about them, right? Tell me about what you do in the community. Tell me about how you serve this population and tell me about what this community needs. And then in turn, I'm going to get to share what I do and then build that relationship. And when I did that in Manistee, I started seeing the referrals coming in and I started seeing the connections be built. And so I think that we preach it a lot in, our master's programs. It's all about relationships. It's all about relationships. But I think we need to keep preaching that in business because I would say I would not have gotten as far as I have if it wasn't for those cups of coffee that I'm having with people on random Tuesday mornings.
Mm.
Those make a big difference.
Yeah. So when you have a new location, how many hours do you think you put into in-person meeting people?
I would say maybe 10, 15, but it all pays for itself once you get one
Yeah.
client. You get one, you think about it, you're spending an hour of your time. That's what, roughly on average worth $150. You're buying yourself and somebody else a cup of coffee. There's $20. So $170 of your, time is being spent. You get one client that comes and sees a clinician once a week, right? That's going to be really, that's going to pay for itself as it goes.
Awesome. All right,
Yeah.
let's get some of these questions coming in here. Also, you can virtually raise your hand if you want to talk to Nicole. All right, first question. Hi, Nicole, regarding SEO. Love that you mentioned the importance of embedding the proper keywords for your headquarters location as well as a new location. Are the keywords already embedded in the website? What about longitudinal SEO? I already know a lot about the details of SEO, but wanted to hear from you how important longitudinal monthly SEO is and how much money you should be spending on it.
So I appreciate your question. I don't have a perfect answer because I am at the point where I don't really track that anymore. I think maybe early on I did because I was really wanting to see how many clicks are we getting? How many, where are we? But I'm at the point, especially with our Traverse City site, where I'm ranking top on Google all the time that I just kind of quit focusing on it. I just make sure our website's updated. I peek in there maybe once a month and I update profiles, pictures, announcements, make sure everything looks good. And then that's it. I would say a few times a year, I hire somebody to update our plugins to just make sure everything looks healthy for our website. But I do not pay for monthly maintenance anymore. Early on, I did, though. I will say early on, I had somebody and again, that was a while back, so I'm not exactly sure how much money I spent. But early on, I was paying for monthly for somebody to come in, keep an eye on things, make sure it looks good. But I'm at the point now, thankfully, and that's the beauty of opening these multi sites and kind of taking hold of it and growing so much is I'm at the point now where I can easily keep an eye on that. If there's a problem, I reach out to somebody. But I would say maybe few times a year, I bring somebody on, pay them for an hour of their time to update plugins and to make sure everything looks good, and then go from there. When I'm ready for an updated website, obviously I'll start, investing more money. But for right now, it works, and thankfully, I'm a bit tech savvy, so I can just pop on and change things, and it's fairly easy to do once you realize how much money you're paying somebody to do something you could be doing yourself.
Yeah, and I think there are those things that it's like as the practice grows, if you enjoy it and it's like, you can wear those multiple hats if you like it, but then also if you're doing that at the sacrifice of doing the things that could scale the business, it's like, well, each owner has to decide that. I think
Exactly.
Arnav's term there you may not have heard before. It's also called long tail keywords sometimes. So just for those that don't know, that's where you pick, something that maybe only 5 or 10 people a month are searching for, but then you can rank in that very easily. So for example, anxiety for couples in a second marriage. So it's like very specific, maybe only 5 or 10 people a month are looking for it, but you get those 5 or 10 clients every single time. So thinking about your new clinical staff as like, okay, what are a couple of the niches that they're really into? How do we write some blog posts, optimize their landing page for about them for those types of things and
And
have
we
them
did
make
that
them
for EMDR. When we started
yeah,
getting more
exactly.
EMDR therapists, we did that for EMDR because what we found is that people were searching EMDR in Traverse City and we were ranking really low on that. So bloop, 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 we got right back up and we were good to go.
It's a fun game. I mean, I remember when I
It
started mental
is.
wellness counseling.com, and for a while it was like me, this other therapist, Nick Erber, who's not in town, and then Psychology Today would always be in the top three. And then like I just was like really just kept working on it. And then Nick would almost always be third, and it'd be like I'd be above Psychology Today, I'd not be above it, and that kind of up and down. One thing to also think about is kind of your site rank authority and finding those links from other sites that are larger than yourself. So for years, we recommended, doing things on Help a Reporter Out. That's now switched. I forgot what it's changed to. We can look up the name change, but that's a way to get some national quotes and national kind of links back to your website that maybe you wouldn't typically get. All right, got some questions coming in here. Next question. Hi, Nicole. I'd love to hear how your leadership team has changed as the practice has grown. Have you added leaders per site? Do you have clinical and operational leaders, and how did they support the growth? Awesome. Yeah, that was an
Yeah.
operational area we didn't get to yet. So
Yes,
great.
great question. So I did it by myself for a long time. So if I would take on an intern, if I would take on limited license folks, I'd be doing all of that supervision myself. And not only for insurance billing would I be reading their notes, submitting their insurance claims, all of that. I was kind of just being the clinical director, so to speak. My practice is set up with 1099s. So I have over 30 clinicians, all 1099s. I know that not every state has that opportunity and you'd be looking at W-2s, but you can still use the same model. But I was playing that clinical director role, and it was a couple of years ago. It was about the same time that we opened up our second site where I was like, I can't keep up with this. Not only is the supervision I'm providing not quality anymore because I'm just rushing through and fitting people in where I can. But also, I could tell I was being stretched thin. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But knowing when you're getting stretched too thin is the time to make a change. Um, and so that's when I thought, okay, I need to bring on somebody else who can play that clinical director role, so to speak, and work with interns and work with folks who have limited license so that I can free myself up to offer more quality. So it was in spring of 22 that I brought on somebody um, to provide some level of mentoring and some level of direction for limited license folks in that supervision. So that worked out really, really well. And then a year later, I brought on somebody else who could do supervision for our LPCs. So supervising MSWs or LLMSWs in the state of Michigan is myself, another clinical supervisor, and then just recently I now have a third clinical supervisor who provides all of the supervision for our LLPCs. So
Mm,
that way we can have multiple disciplines offering services, both limited license and full license. So it was slowly, again, in the beginning, I was doing everything myself, and I had to really identify how I decided I was going to move forward with bringing additional people on.
mm. Awesome. Next question is your website on WordPress? I've had to hire a computer programmer to change photos, copies, stylistic changes on WordPress because JavaScript and HTML needs to be known. Are you using a different website like Wix or Squarespace since those you can copy and share? Let me just jump in there. I have a WordPress website. I helped build some of mental wellness counseling's. For photos in there, you upload it and you click add photo. So the comment about needing to know JavaScript and HTML, I don't know any of that, and I have put photos and done some styling without any of that. So I don't know what your thought is on that, Nicole.
Yeah, I use WordPress and I have been able to change the template, the look, the feel, the pictures, the font. I can change everything. And I kind of feel like if you can do Canva, like most of us have, created a flyer on Canva. If you can do something like Canva or Shutterfly, create your Christmas pictures. If you can do that, you can do your own website. So yes, I think in the beginning when you're developing your website, you should bring somebody on so it looks professional. But changes, like when I get a new clinician, I get their headshot and their profile and I log in as the administrator and bloop 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 takes me 10
Yep.
seconds to add somebody. So yeah, I'm not sure about the comment about Java or anything, but it really is fairly easy. I think it's a bit intimidating for folks, but I would rather do something again that can take me 10 seconds to do than hire somebody for an hour of their time, which sometimes can be very expensive. But again, everybody has to do what's best for them.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, let's keep those questions coming in for Nicole. Nicole, when you think about this fourth location, so that's coming up in the next couple months, what else are you thinking about in regards to adding that location? You've done some research, like take us through other things like being in the local paper. Like what's your checklist for each new
Yeah.
location, maybe?
So my first checklist is, my why. Why am I doing this? And I think that whether you are opening up your first location and doing the whole solo practice thing, or you are, diving in to open a multiple site location, I think you have to ask yourself, like, what is your why? And so for me, being a mom of two kids, a full-time professor, running the show here, I think I really had to ask myself, like, why am I doing this? Because it's a lot, right? And so um, for me, it's I want to retire early. I want to retire at 50 years old. I want to live the lifestyle that I want to live. And in order to do that, I need to make X amount of money. And in order to make X amount of money, I need to have this many locations. And so that's what drives me. So I think number one, identifying your why. Number two, and I'll say it again, love interns. So last year, my intern, I said, I want to start planning for my next location. Here are the two locations where I feel like, based on the data we've collected, we have the most people coming from. And if you know Michigan, it's Gaylord and Cadillac. So Gaylord and Cadillac, those are the next two locations. And so I had her run the numbers for me, my intern. I had her identify what does the competition look like? who are the biggest employers, what insurances do they provide, geographically, what are we looking at for median income, who can afford private pay, who can't. She did all that for me, and in the end, I decided Cadillac was our next best option. So, working with a realtor right now, I have decided between two buildings and hopefully be opening that location. But once I identify the location, the checklist is going to be obviously securing the lease, getting everything in my name, getting furniture, making it beautiful. That's really important to me. Having a very aesthetically pleasing space is really important to me. So making sure that I can make it look beautiful at minimal cost, right? Like I'm not going and buying brand new furniture for my offices. Nope, I'm not going to do that. But I'm a pretty thrifty person and I can make something out of nothing. I'm a social worker, right? If you're a counselor or social worker, you know how that works, right? Um, so anyway, so that making the space beautiful and simultaneously start the hiring process. So putting my ads out in Indeed, start interviewing people and bringing people on knowing that I'm building something, right? That they're not going to come in with a fresh caseload, right? They're going to come in, they're going to be joining me while I'm building something. But what I do is I share my vision with them. I tell them, if you join me, this is what it's going to be. And within X amount of time, you're going to have a full caseload. Is that a little presumptuous of me? Maybe, but that's how we build, right? That's how we grow is to envision what we're going to build, and then you get to see it happen right in front of your eyes. So anyway, so yeah, that's the checklist is getting the building, hiring the people, and then start the marketing process, start building those relationships, start inviting people for coffee. But the great news is once you do that, it's a working machine that just does itself. I don't do much in Manistee anymore. I pop in once a month to see how things are going, see if we need, a refill of like water. I just peek in because it becomes a sustainable machine itself once you do all of that. And so my plan for Cadillac will be to open the site, build the relationships, get the clinicians, and then pop in once a month to check on things again.
We've got about 10 minutes left here, Nicole. Let me see what questions are coming in here. There was a question about if help a reporter out, what that had switched to. That actually changed, and I put this in the chat to connectively.us. So that's a good way to get featured in other areas. And then looks like Sarah also put in that link to read about all the memberships. And then, yeah, just some different links in there as well. Nicole, when you think about just operations for someone that's just getting started and they're maybe thinking about their next location, how should they get themselves organized?
Oh, I think the biggest piece of getting organized, especially when you're getting ready to open up another location, or you're considering what that's going to look like, is I'm big on checklists. And remember that your checklists don't have to come in any specific order, and you don't have to wait for the right time. I think that's something that somebody told, I don't even know who told me a long time ago, but they said if you wait for the right time, you're never going to do anything because there's never going to be a right time to open a practice. There's never going to be a right time to join a club. There's never going to be a right time to, do the thing, to go on the vacation. Like if you wait, life's going to pass you by. And so I think that's the biggest thing for me is I'm going to make my checklist even when I don't have all the other ducks in a row. And maybe that's irresponsible of me, but you know, we're making, we're making the money to prove that it works, at least on my end. So I think that's the biggest thing is you have your checklist, you follow your checklist. It doesn't have to be in a specific order. You do the things that you have to do to move on to that next thing and to do the next thing. And making sure you have people to support you along the ride.
So awesome. Keep those questions coming in. We've got about 10 minutes, and we can always wrap up early if she's answered every single question you have. I am going to put a link in as well if you want to. Where'd y'all go? There you are. Okay. I'm going to put a link. If you're interested in doing consulting with Nicole, Nicole is one of our consultants here with Practice of the Practice. So that's something that if you need some one-on-one help, by all means, head on over to practiceofthepractice.com/apply. And then you and I will talk for 30 minutes to just hear where you're at, hear where you're headed. And then if Nicole seems like the best fit for your situation, then we'll talk about what a consulting plan would look like.
Yeah. And the great thing about I was going to say
yeah,
just the great thing about consulting too is what works for me isn't going to work for everybody, but when you have a consultant, you can really dive into that person see what's going on through their lens, just like we do with our clients, right? And then make a plan that's going to be specific to you.
We have a great question that just came through. What was the vision that drove you?
I I think for me, um, the vision is to have more than what I grew up with and to give my kids more than what I grew up with. I think many of us are in that boat where, we always say, well, we want to do better and be better for our children or for our nieces, our nephews. Like we want to do more for the world than what we were able to do. And I think for me, that's what drove me was, I want to give my children amazing opportunities. I want to take my nieces and nephews on amazing vacations. I want to uh, give something back to people when they gave to me when I didn't have anything. And so I think for me, I think when it comes down to it, like I'm driven by the opportunities that I can give to other people. And unfortunately, we can't give every opportunity without money. And then so for me, it was really about like, I want to make X amount of money and go from there. And setting the boundaries is the biggest piece for me too. Like I couldn't I can want a certain lifestyle, but if I don't set boundaries, I can't. And I think that's the biggest thing is, yeah, I run a practice and I am a professor, but you know what? I don't work past 3 o'clock. I never work past 3 o'clock and I never work Friday, Saturday, or Sunday.
Yeah.
And I've cultivated the opportunity to be able to do that so that I can utilize those opportunities that were part of my vision, right? Because I can spend time with my kids. I can make dinner every day. I can pick them up from school every day. Because do I work really hard 4 days a week from 8 to 3? I do. I work really, really hard, but I love what I do so that I can go on 4 vacations a year. I did 5 vacations last year, 5 big vacations so that I can get out of work at 3 every day. And so I can have every weekend off. So
Mhm.
I think it's just about taking that vision.
Yeah, awesome. I love that you talked about that time side because I do think sometimes it's like people hear lifestyle and children, even like, one of the questions is, but do you really have the time if you're running these multi-locations? And you're proof that you do. I work 3 days a week. I work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. My first meeting's at 9:30. My last meeting's at 3:30 so that I can walk my daughter to school every day, walk and pick her up every day. And when I do work, it's busy work, but like not busy work, it's busy
Yeah.
at work. I just do busy work all day. So okay, such a great question, follow-up question to that, and I think this is a good one to end on. How can you grow a practice but not have to actually manage?
I mean, I think one beautiful thing is fortunately for me, I have 1099s. So I don't have employees. And for me, that was really important. I don't want to be anybody's boss. I want to bring on clinicians who want to come in, see their clients, make good money, and go home at the end of the day. And then I put the operations in place to make sure that happens. So I don't have to look at billing because I have a biller that I trust who's taking every care of everything. I don't have to answer phones or emails because I have somebody I trust who loves mental health, loves serving her community, and wants to help people make money. I don't have to worry about cleaning the offices because I have somebody who comes and does it once a week. So really, I think the big thing is I'm able to step back, bring people on that I trust to do the right job and to do well, and people who want to make money. And so if they want to make money and they're motivated and they're good therapists, by the way, right? Like I'm making sure I'm bringing on good people. And don't get me wrong, there's seasons where I do have to manage, right? Like when I'm opening up this next location, there's going to be a lot of management involved. But once I get the wheels turning and once I get the machine going, I can step back and just let it do its job. And then if there's a problem, I'll step in. But for the most part, I think when you have the proper operations in place and you have everything in motion, you do have the opportunity to step back, pop in once a month and say hello. And, just keep the machine going. I think it's a really good thing. Not to say I don't offer support when it's needed. I have an open door policy with all my clinicians. If you need me, call me and I will be there and be there to support you. But no news is good news. If I don't hear from my clinicians, I just know they're seeing their clients and they're making money and I'm making money too.
Mhm. So awesome. Well, I'm going to just show you what's up next. While I'm doing this, if you could pick a reaction at the bottom to this talk, that would be awesome to see a whole bunch of emojis and all of that. come through as to what your reaction is. I do see there's one last question, so we're going to throw this in there because it's just a follow-up. So the driving question is, what is your machine and the parts for it? So what are those key parts? Any key parts that you didn't cover, Nicole, as we bid one another adieu?
I don't think so. I think just when it comes to the machine, again, having the operations in place to do, I mean, it's just like, any kind of machine. Every big machine has its little parts, and if every little part's doing its job well, then you get just to sit back and watch the machine run. And that's the beauty of having the operations in place is I do just get to sit back and support people when they need it. And then if they don't, again, just like watch it happen, which really is wonderful.
Well, if you're confused about next steps, would love for you to either join Group Practice Boss so that you can have access to Nicole and the other consultants and the whole community. Or if you're interested in working with Nicole to help automate your business, practiceofthepractice.com/apply. That's where you can apply to work with us one-on-one as well. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today and letting us into your ears and into your brain. Bye, everybody.
I
Thank you so much for listening to the Level Up Week series. I hope you are getting so much help out of this. If you need extra help, head on over to practiceofthepractice.com/apply. I would love to spend 30 minutes brainstorming with you as to your phase of practice and helping you determine whether a membership community or consulting is right for you. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/apply. And we couldn't do this show without our amazing sponsors. If you're thinking about the end of the year and taxes and wrapping all of that up, you need to connect with Herd. Connect with them before the end of the year so that you can get a free consultation to talk through your tax situation. There's tons of things that you need to think about year end, and Herd is going to help you with it. Head on over to joinherd.com/Joe. That's join, HEARD.com/Joe. Thank you for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.